I wanna hear the one about the big old plum tree. I wanna hear the one about the giggly bumblebee. I wanna hear the one about the juggly jumping flea. That's the story that I wanna hear. That's the story, that's the story, that's the story that I wanna hear. That's the story, that's the story, that's the story that I wanna hear.
Hello, I'm Ronnie. Welcome to another show. This week, our theme is a little bit nautical. See if you can figure out what links all our stories this week together. In the meantime, let's kick off our show this week with a story with a slightly nautical theme. But that's not the theme that runs all the way through. See if you can guess what it is.
Mark often wandered down to the wharf at the end of his street when he got home from school. There wasn't much of a beach there, just a few metres of sand and a couple of big trees, but Mark loved it, especially because there was never anyone else much around. One afternoon, he sat down near a tall pohutukawa tree and lazily trailed a stick through the white sand. It had been a nice sunny day and he could hear the waves gently lap at the shore. Suddenly, he realised a murky fog was starting to surround him. The fog was creeping up so fast he could hardly see beyond his hands. Then, as if from nowhere, he could see a large shape approaching the shore through the mist. Mark squinted his eyes to get a better look. It looked like an old wooden ship with a tall, tattered yellow sail and tiny portholes down the side. The ship was gliding towards him through the fog and suddenly stopped right at the end of the wharf. Mark was puzzled. He'd never seen a large ship at a tiny wharf before, and certainly nothing like this before. It looked like something out of a history book. The ship's gangplank seemed to magically lower, and Mark found himself drawn towards it. Before he knew what he was doing, he walked right on up and through the doorway. The ship was very dark inside, and cobwebs hung from every corner. Mark stumbled around, taking care not to hit his head on the low ceilings. He called out, "Hello! But only heard his own echoey hello bouncing back. There didn't seem to be anyone else on board. As his eyes became accustomed to the dark, Mark could pick out some old wooden chests stacked around against the far wall. He crept over and tried to open one. The lid creaked noisily as he struggled to open it. Inside were stacks and stacks of gold coins. Mark ran his hands through them in amazement. Imagine what his friends would say if they could see all this treasure. He picked up one of the coins, marvelling at how cold and smooth it felt. He was just contemplating whether or not to put it in his pocket as a keepsake when a loud "Wah!" made him jump. A bright red parrot swooped in through the doorway and flapped right past Mark's head. Then a loud thumping noise came from the room next door.
"Who's there?"
growled an angry-sounding voice.
"It better not be someone stealing my treasure. If it is, I'll wring their necks with my bare hands."
The sound of heavy footsteps began and soon got closer and closer. Mark closed the lid of the treasure chest and ran as fast as he could towards the door. The footsteps were almost upon him now. What was he going to do? Mark took a giant leap towards the gangplank when he tripped and tumbled over. With a start, Mark woke up. He rubbed his eyes. He was still sat down by the tall pohutukawa tree. He must have fallen asleep. Mightily relieved that he was safe after all, he picked himself up and started to stroll home. I wonder when he'll notice the gold coin rattling in his pocket.
So, have you figured out what this week's theme is yet? Not yet? Let's have another story and see if you can figure it out.
Captain Horrible John was a pirate.
Warm your ears, be prepared to walk the plank.
He was the most feared pirate in all the seven seas.
Help! It's Captain Horrible John!
Like all good respectable pirates, he sported a patch over one eye. His left eye, he was poked in at once by a rather scary sea monster.
It was a slimy creature that measured 172 meters long and had fangs as sharp as a sword and breath so foul it would make concrete melt.
Well, that's what he told all the other pirates. In reality, he was actually prodded in the eye by a branch of an apple tree he was climbing once while pinching some poor unsuspecting orcharders' fruit.
Shh, don't tell anyone.
Captain Horrible John wore a wooden leg.
Arr!
His right leg.
Arr!
He lost his leg while fighting the dreaded four-headed dragon of Margunia.
War, the four-headed Morgunian dragon. Now that was a fight to behold. I sliced it into 100 pieces and ate its flesh that night for my supper. Arr!
Well, that's what he tells all the other pirates. In reality, he actually had both legs, but just for looks, he tied one up behind his back and pretended to only have one leg, so that he looked more pirate-like.
Well, who ever heard of a pirate without a wooden leg? Arr!
Captain Horrible John, the most feared pirate of the seven seas,
Help! It's Captain Horrible
had
John!
a hook for a hand,
Well, actually, it's an old coat hanger.
a telescope,
It's actually last week's newspaper rolled up.
and a great big scary pirate ship.
Arr, the Deirdre.
Yes, a pirate ship called Deirdre.
Watch it, young man, or I'll have you walking the plank.
Now, even though Captain Horrible John, the scariest pirate in all the seven seas,
Help! It's Captain Horrible John!
yes, Captain Horrible John, even though Captain Horrible John had the scariest pirate ship in all the world, he had a little problem.
Arr, just a little one.
His ship was the fastest on the sea.
Faster than the wind.
His ship had the most guns of all the ships on the water.
Cannons the size of houses that can shoot cannonballs the size of cows.
They're just normal cannons, Captain John.
Arr, that's Horrible John to you, landlubber.
Deirdre, Captain Horrible John's pirate ship, could sail anywhere,
Arr,
the
anywhere.
roughest of seas,
Arr, the roughest of seas.
to faraway treasure islands.
Don't tell him about my treasure islands.
It was just that, well, Captain Horrible John got seasick.
Whoa, I don't feel very well.
When his ship rose over the slightest wave, sank down into the smallest of wakes, his stomach would heave and churn and bubble and squeak.
Get me a bucket first, mate.
Oi, oi, Captain!
He tried seasickness pills,
They were no help at all.
tried air plates, acupuncture, hypnotherapy, and aromatherapy,
Not one of them worked, so I made them all walk the plank.
until his first mate found the answer.
Captain!
War, first mate Marty Man-Eater, the man-eating first mate.
I'm not really a man-eater.
It sounds good knowing the captain. Now what is it you want?
Why don't we stay anchored in port?
Arr,
And just stay here
arr,
and be the most feared
arr,
pirates
arr.
of the docks.
Not the seven seas.
No, Captain. Who needs to go sailing around those seven seas anyway? Lot of bother over nothing, if you ask me.
Arr,
We could just stay here
arr,
and rob and pillage all the other boats that come into the dock.
arr. We'd never have to set sail again.
And so Captain Horrible John, the most feared pirate in all the seven seas, became Captain Horrible John,
Prepare to be boarded, me
the
hearties.
most feared pirate in the docks.
Arr.
Old Horrible John stayed anchored in docks and robbed and pillaged all the other boats that came into the docks.
Arr.
Well, that's actually not totally accurate. Captain Horrible John opened a cafe on board the pirate ship Deirdre and sold paninis and trim lattes to tourists.
But I charged them an obscene amount of money. Daylight robbery, it is daylight robbery. Arr. Right, let's play a game. We're about to give you some clues. From those clues, I would like you to guess who it is we're talking about. Listen carefully, take some notes. You're allowed to use Google. Are you ready? Here we go.
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is. Who could it be? Let's wait and see what the clues are to this quiz.
This gentleman was born in Ayrshire, Scotland on August the 6th, 1881. He attended medical school in London and graduated in 1906. He studied bacteriology. He assisted in battlefield hospitals in France during World War I, where he observed soldiers dying of septicemia or some infection in spite of surviving initial battlefield wounds. In 1927, he investigated the properties of staphylococci. The laboratory where he discovered and tested penicillin is now a museum named after him in St Mary's Hospital in Paddington. He made the discovery of penicillin public in 1929 after conducting many experiments. The research did not stir up enough interest, though he published a report in the British Journal of Experimental Pathology, and he continued to work on the mould for several years. The penicillin mould was purified and became a very viable antibiotic all over the world, due to the efforts of Howard Florey and Ernst Chain during World War II. He received the Nobel Prize for Physiology and Medicine in 1945, along with Florey and Chain. He was knighted as a Knight's Bachelor in 1944. He died of heart failure in London on March the 11th, 1955, at the age of 73. In 1999, Time magazine named him one of the 100 most important people of the 20th century.
What's his name? What's she called? I think I know who that is.
If you're not sure who that was, ask your teacher to play it again. Remember, take some notes, and you're allowed to use Google. Now, let's meet someone that's rather horrible indeed.
If there ever was a tale worth telling, it would be the one about a pirate, a completely disastrous fellow by the name of Captain Dingle. Although Captain Dingle had inherited an enormous pirate ship from his father, named the Barnacle Bone, he had to sail the seven seas with a rather large L sticker on the starboard hull, as he had managed to fail his sailing test 3 times. The first time, he and his crew forgot to untie the ship from the dock as they set sail from the licensing port. The second time, he tried to put the Barnacle Bone into reverse, but released a cannonball into a neighbouring yacht instead. And on his last sailing test, he misjudged the wind, sailing into the Bermuda Triangle and lost his instructor.
Oh well.
Captain Dingle was heard saying after he failed his last attempt,
Perhaps I need a parrot that can sit on my shoulder and whisper in my ear, and that way I'm sure to get my full pirate's license. Right-o, all hands on deck. We're going to a tropical island to find a parrot that knows how to sail a ship.
So off they went. Captain Dingle and the crew of the Barnacle Bone, with billowing sails, firstly starboard left, but then right, as they sort of went the wrong way to begin with. After sailing for a few days, Captain Dingle peered through his spyglass as they approached land.
Oi, Burley!
Yelled Captain Dingle.
That land there looks suspiciously like the Canary Islands.
That's right, Captain Sir.
Said the first matey, Burley Bomb, whose name had nothing to do with bombing ships, more to do with the fact that he was often hung over the side as bait when the crew were fishing.
But I'm looking for a parrot!
Cried Captain Dingle.
My mum's got a canary.
Said Burley Bomb.
It's a lovely singer. We'll get one that sings a tune on how to sail a boat.
Well, all right. We'll go ashore.
Said Captain Dingle. There was really little other choice, as it was starting to get dark and he wasn't allowed to sail after 10 p.m. with only a learner license.
Drop the anchor!
He yelled, and then he sighed as he watched one of his crewmen drop the anchor off the side and right through the bottom of one of the boats they used to row ashore.
Sorry, Captain?
The crewmate spluttered as they all squeezed into the remaining rowboat.
Nobody talk until we get to shore,
said Captain Dingle. And indeed, they rowed in silence straight towards the shore and straight into a rock. So they all toppled out just meters from the beach.
Did anybody see the rock?
Captain Dingle fumed, pulling seaweed from his hat.
Oh, yeah, I saw it.
Yes, I saw it.
And me, I saw it too.
Yeah, I did.
Then why did no one say anything?
You told us not to.
Scurvy and plagues on the lot of ya.
Captain Dingle hissed.
Now go find me a parrot before it's too dark to see.
The men dutifully scampered off into the undergrowth, and one by one they came back to the beach where their captain was waiting. The first to come back had a turtle.
What am I gonna do with a turtle?
Asked Captain Dingle.
Well, you can use him as a guide for danger, see? He hides his head in his shell when an enemy is near.
All right, little turtle,
said Captain Dingle.
You can navigate me in unknown waters.
The next to appear had a mouse.
No feathers, no beak. What are you lot doing out there?
Moaned Captain Dingle.
I thought maybe he could be in charge of chewing the ropes.
The second mate explained.
Not a bad idea if you can train him,
said Captain Dingle, though he was beginning to doubt if he would ever get a parrot as each crew member appeared with more varied wildlife. There was a monkey to run up the mast if the sail ropes got tangled, a magpie that spotted treasure, even a dung beetle to round up those loose cannonballs.
Everyone's back now,
said Captain Dingle as he peered through the settling darkness.
Everyone except Burley.
Here I am, sir,
called Burley, emerging from a jungle trail. And there on his shoulder sat a huge colourful parrot, all green and blue and red.
Well done, Burley Bomb,
grinned Captain Dingle.
Does it know how to talk? Has he been on a ship?
Aye.
Flapped the giant bird.
Yes, Captain Sir, he's definitely been on a ship. He's got sea legs, see?
Said Burley, pointing towards the bird's semi-webbed claws.
Excellent,
smiled Captain Dingle.
You lot, fish the paddles out of the water. We'll head back to the ship.
So they all piled back into the rowboat, which had even less room on board with the inclusion of so many animals, and rowed back to the Barnacle Bone. Once on board, Captain Dingle proudly paraded around the deck with his new parrot perched on his shoulder.
And hello to you, my new feathered friend. I'm Captain Gregory Dingle II, famed pirate of the sea, master of the battle, plunderer of the deep, and soon to be fully licensed and ready to sail after dark.
Replied the parrot.
What?
Said a horrified Captain Dingle.
Burley, this parrot speaks Japanese!
But Burley was safely down below, settling all the animals into their new home by the time he resurfaced. Captain Dingle had calmed down and mustered up a plan.
First thing in the morning, Burley, you idiot. We're sailing to the nearest port, where you're off to find a sailing book. One that's in Japanese.
It wasn't such a bad idea. All the captain needed was a Japanese ocean code with the words north and south, starboard and port, and in particular, watch out, there's a rock up ahead. And he was sure to pass his pirate sailing test.
Sleep well, my good fellows.
Captain Dingle called out as he turned in for the night.
Tomorrow I shall obtain my full licence, and we shall celebrate.
Hooray! Said the crew of the Barnacle Bone, and they all settled in their beds below deck. But it was a long time before they drifted off to sleep. What with the magpies squawking, the mouse nibbling, the turtles napping, and all the animals getting used to life in the new home.
Oh, that was a terrible sleep.
Grumbled Captain Dingle.
Damn parrot snores.
That's the matter.
Grinned Burley.
We forgot to put the anchor down and the monkeys steered us through the night. We're just about at the port.
Woohoo!
Said Captain Dingle.
You go grab the book. I'll study all morning and we can sit the test this afternoon.
And so Burley Bob rowed to shore and found the Japanese ocean codes so Captain Dingle could study his Japanese. Meanwhile, the crew, with the help of their magpie, the turtle, the mouse, the dung beetle and the Japanese parrot, sailed their way back to the licensing port.
Back again, are we?
Sneered the licensing officer as they skillfully docked at the wharf.
That's right,
said Captain Dingle.
I'm ready to, rock.
And off they went, the mice chewing at the ropes, the monkey managing the sails, and Captain Dingle's pirate crying out directions. The Barnacle Bone sailed across the seas like a knife through butter, tacking hard and right, veering well left and slicing through the choppiest of seas. Then as they pulled into port, with the parrot navigating the perfect parallel part, Captain Dingle could hardly contain his pride.
What do you say, eh?
He crowed.
Surely I've earned my full sailor's licence now.
But the licensing officer had his head buried deep in his ocean code book, and when he spoke it was not all good news.
Indeed, Captain Dingle. I now declare yourself and the Barnacle Bone fit to sail after dark. You have passed your full licence.
Hooray!
But,
he added with a more serious tone,
I note that you do not have a zoo licence to carry this many animals on board.
Zoo licence?
Said the crew.
Ah, fish sticks!
Cursed Captain Dingle. It had taken him long enough to get his sailor's licence. So off they sailed on their next adventure, but that's another tale altogether.
Okie diddly dokey, let's play another game. This time we're going to give you some clues, and from those clues I want you to try and guess where on earth we are talking about. Take some notes, you're allowed to use Google. Here we go.
Where on earth could I be? It's tricky, I think you'll agree. I'll give you a clue, perhaps even two. Oh, where on earth could I be?
Our continent's population is 0, although lots of people visit, and some people do stay for months at a time, but nobody lives here. It's pretty cold here. This continent covers a whopping 13,209,000 square kilometres, much bigger than Europe, but less than half the size of Africa. Our highest peak is Vinson Massif at 4,897 metres above sea level. Our largest lake is Lake Vostok, but it's nearly always mostly covered in ice.
Oh, where on earth could I be?
Did you guess where it was? If you're not sure still, ask the teacher to play it again. Don't forget to take some notes, and you're allowed to use Google. Now, let's head for Aunt Nora's farm. What, you've never been there before? Well, it's about time you went.
Gosh, it's cold, thought Gemma sleepily, just in the middle of waking up. Then a moment later she thought, but Oh, why would I be cold? I had blankets on last night. I did. Oh dear. Then as she sat bolt upright, she realised the blanket had gone, and worse, the window in her bedroom was wide open. No wonder I'm freezing, yelled Gemma, just as from the room right next to her she heard Jimmy shout, "Who nicked my blankets? It's so cold!" The twins burst out of their rooms, pulling on shirts and trousers at the same time, and equally as mad. "Who'd steal our blankets?" began Jimmy. "While we're asleep," finished Gemma. I'm freezing," came from down the hallway, from Mum and Dad's room. "I think we're dealing with a serial blanket stealer," said Jimmy grimly. "Let's investigate." So the two intrepid detectives, now well and truly wrapped up and still quietly fuming, stormed out into the bright, if a little nippy, morning. Aunt Nora's farm was the logical stop, but on the way they saw more clues. The big horses, Harry and Harriet, normally warm and snug in two huge horse blankets in their field, were shivering for shelter under a big tree, with no blankets. Aunt Nora's washing line, normally a blaze of colour with at least half a dozen sheets and blankets of all sorts of bright and brilliant colours, had a single pair of grey short socks on it, and Aunt Nora was standing alongside it, tapping one foot very firmly on the ground and frowning with great concentration. "Let us guess," shouted Jimmy as the twins ran up. "All your sheets and blankets are gone. Clean off your washing line," said Gemma. Why, yes, twins. How did you know?" asked Aunt Nora. "We're detectives, hot on the trail of clues," said Jimmy pompously. "And someone stole our blankets while we were asleep and it woke us up," said Gemma, nudging him in the ribs. "Well, I hope you find out who it was and get my sheets back," called out Aunt Nora as the twins ran out of her yard, hot on the trail of clues they'd talked about. Only thing was, there wasn't really a trail of clues, just lots of people who seemed to be missing their sheets and blankets. Gordon was missing his. They were only the size of handkerchiefs, but they were his nonetheless. Barney the sheep's favourite blanket was gone. So was Mr. Buxton's. But as the twins tramped all over the place, they got no closer to an answer. Eventually, as the wind started to get up a bit and they got a bit tired, not to mention dejected, they huddled under a big tree by the little river. "But who would steal blankets and sheets?" said Gemma. "And why?" said Jimmy. "And why so many?" ended Gemma. And at that moment, they heard a familiar voice, a fair way away, calling, "Wee-hee-hey-har, avast there, wee-har!" The twins looked at each other, blinked, and crept up to the top of the bank, where they could look down on the little river. And as they looked in the direction that familiar voice was calling out from, they saw a quite bizarre sight. A huge, vast, multicoloured, gigantic, cloud-like thing, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it came closer and closer and closer to them, rushing down, down, down the little river at the speed of a train, or a quite modern bus at least, and hanging under it was a boat. A familiar boat. It's the Bouncing Buccaneer, said an amazed Jimmy. And that huge thing is a sail? The biggest sail I've ever seen, said Gemma. And so many weird different colours, said Jimmy. The blankets! That sail's made up of all the missing blankets and sheets, cried Gemma. Including ours! Yelled Jimmy, as the sail with a boat attached went past with a noise like thunder, and there, whooping and hollering behind it with a parrot perched on his shoulder and riding two old cutlasses that had been banged and whacked into the shape of water skis, was Jolly Roger the pirate. The mystery was solved, and when the jolly little waterlogged pirate had had enough and steered his giant sail to shore, he sheepishly confessed to the twins. "I got the idea last week, when the wind was awful strong and I could barely control the boat. I was going so fast. I started to thinking, how would it be to be on the water behind that sail, going as fast as I could? Now, I don't hold with them smelly, noisy jet boats, spilling petrol everywhere, so I figured I'd build me a sail, but a very, very big one, to tow the Bouncing Buccaneer and me at a great speed. But I did end up needing a lot of blankets and sheets to do it. Sorry. Sorry, said Jimmy. Sorry, said Gemma. Don't be sorry, Roger, they said together. No, said Gemma. You should just have asked us, because for a free ride behind your mighty sail, I'd have lent you my sheep. But, continued Jimmy, it's not too late to ask us now. And that was how, on a windy day, there came to be 2 large horses, a sheep, Mr. Buxton, Aunt Nora, Gordon and the twins, all taking turns behind the giant sail and having enormous fun water skiing. In fact, they carried on till dusk, when Jolly Roger unpicked the sheets he'd sewn together and returned each and every one, even if they were a teeny bit wet, back to their rightful owners.
Don't forget to tell all your friends to subscribe to That's the Story. We can't do it without your help. Let's see if we can get as many people as possible to subscribe. Help me out. I really need your help. Now let's meet Two-Eyed Jack.
Two-Eyed Jack was the loneliest pirate on the 7 seas. He was called Two-Eyed Jack because he had 2 eyes, which was unusual for pirates as they normally have 1 eye and a patch over the other. He wasn't a very nice pirate, rather horrible to be quite honest, but I suppose there's nothing unusual about that. He was horrible, and that's what pirates are. Only Two-Eyed Jack didn't like being lonely. He loved being horrible.
War me hearty, scrub that deck with me grandmother's toothbrush and be quick about it or I'll feed yous to the sharks.
He would yell at his crew.
Get to work, ye horrible lazy layabouts, or I'll send you to the bottom of the sea.
He would insult the crew quite often.
I've seen prettier faces stuck to the bottom of my shoe, you horrible ugly mongrel mob, the lot of you.
And generally be quite that nasty piece of work.
War, fetch me telescope, but do it hopping on 1 leg with a lobster down your trousers.
Yes, Two-Eyed Jack was indeed one very horrible pirate, which is perfectly normal. That's what pirates are. Horrible, only Two-Eyed Jack was lonely. Each and every night he would sit alone in his cabin, sobbing the night away.
War, boo-hoo, war, boo-hoo, oh, woe is me, war.
He was quite lonely for a friend. Even his parrot had left him.
Polly doesn't like the pirate! Polly doesn't like the pirate!
And it flew away. One day, Two-Eyed Jack saw something that would change his life forever. While plundering and pirating, he came across another pirate ship, whose captain was the most feared of all pirates. Even Two-Eyed Jack was a little concerned over meeting with Two-Faced Frederick, the ugliest pirate on the 7 seas. They called him Two-Faced Frederick because his name was Frederick. He would come across all nice and polite.
War, that's a nice looking shirt you're wearing.
And then change completely and finish with,
I'm sure the sharks will enjoy eating it when I throw you overboard.
Two-Faced Frederick was not liked by anyone except, that is, by Two-Eyed Jack.
War, he's a wonderful person. I hate him so much I think I like him.
Funnily enough, Two-Faced Frederick disliked Two-Eyed Jack so much they became the best of friends. Of course, no one else in the 7 seas stood a chance, because when Two-Faced Frederick and Two-Eyed Jack got together, there was a whole lot of horrible to contend with.
Don't forget to subscribe to the That's the Story YouTube channel. It has cartoons, it has animations, it has stories, it has songs, it has a little bit of silliness. Subscribe today. Now let's see if we can figure out what this week's theme is.
I'm a lonely old pirate and I've got no friends. I'm a lonely old pirate and it drives me round the bends. I wanna have friends and play lots of games. Just like everybody else, I'm exactly the same. I'm a lonely old pirate and I've got no mates. And it's a situation that I really hate. I suppose I could be nicer, but that's just not me. So the lonely old life is for me. I'm a lonely old pirate, bad to the core, 'cause I think having friends is an horrible chore.
So, did you get it? Of course you did. This week's theme was pirates, pirates and more pirates. I hope you enjoyed some of our pirate stories. That's my lot for another week. Thanks ever so much for joining me. Please do tell all your friends about That's the Story. See if we can get someone to subscribe this week. We can't do it alone. I need your help. Have a great week. Ka kite anō.
That's the story that I wanna hear.